that's when I've gone to Guatemala to help install stoves in the homes of Mayans up in the mountains. We're over in a corner, cutting a hole in the roof for the stovepipe, or out on the dirt porch, fixing the soup pot. We're hard at work, but inside, there's always someone hard at work too. Sometimes it's the mom of the house, sometimes it's the grandmother of the house, sometimes it's both. But the whole time we are working, they are working too. Why? Because they're fixing a meal for us. There's this radical hospitality that I've experienced in the homes of folks in Guatemala when I've installed stoves, that when we're done with our work, that these people who don't have a lot to begin with invite us to sit at their table. And they feed us what they probably would eat on for days and days and days, but they prepare a feast at each house. So the times that I've sat at those tables, the second time I went, I decided I would do something special. And I took pictures on my camera. I saved pictures from home. And so when we would sit down with this family, I would whip out my camera and show them the pictures that related to their family. This is the mother. Well, this is my mother on the camera. See, this is her. And the father, this is my father. This is his picture. And abuela, this is my abuela. This is my grandmother. And I just happened to have on my camera a picture from the last meal I'd eaten at my Grandma Hart's house before I'd hopped on a plane to go to Guatemala. So as we are sitting there eating, I showed them her table. Abuela, this is my abuela. This is, see, we have chicken on your table. Here's some fried chicken at my grandma's house. And you have some tortillas that you just made on your plancha. We didn't have tortillas, but we have some bread. And then here's some squash at your table. Here's squash that my grandma grew in her garden. And you have some beans and some corn that you grew. Here are beans and corn that my grandma grew in her garden. We would look at these pictures together of how the food related. The food was the same from one table to another table, thousands of miles away. And suddenly, we were connected in a way we never could have been otherwise. There is something that connects us at the table. And so when we gather together today to eat these breads from different places, we are connected to the rest of the world. But it's not just in the eating of the bread in which we are connected. No, we, especially we who live here in America, we are connected. We are connected through our very bodies, because we share so much DNA with each other, because we are this great amalgamation in this country. So many of us have ancestors from different places all over the world. Have you watched those shows on TV? There's one on one of the networks and there's one on PBS. It's called Finding Your Roots. Those shows that are about tracing your ancestry. I love watching these shows, and my favorite part on Finding Your Roots is when Henry Louis Gates Jr., Dr. Henry Louis Gates Jr., sits down with this celebrity or politician or whoever is on a show, and he shows them their genetic makeup. They've done a DNA map of each person who's on the show. And almost without exception, every single person is made up of a variety of folks from around the world. I think the only person who was 100% one haplogroup was Stephen Colbert. Henry Louis Gates Jr. said, "You are the whitest white man we have ever had on this program." He was 100% from right up here. But everybody else was this mix of all of these different haplogroups. We are literally flesh of each other's flesh. We are literally bone of each other's bone. And when we gather at this table and we eat these ordinary things, this extraordinary thing happens to us. That we get a taste for what life is like in another part of the world. I decided to eat some of the mbasha today. I'd never had this, and Mandy made it, so I was like, I'm going to eat what Mandy made. And I'm sitting here chewing, and I'm listening to you, choir, and all of a sudden, my mouth is on fire. Did that happen to anybody else? There's some good spice in the mbasha, isn't there? What was it? Oh, there's some cayenne pepper. Just a little. That would be why. That would be why. I'm going to pass this around. Actually, I'm going to have Claire and, yeah, come on down. We're going to pass some bread around again. I want to invite you to take a bite you didn't take a bite of this time. Particularly with the mbasha. Yeah, just see who wants it. You know, when we eat foods that come from different parts of the world, we get to experience, somebody else come down, usher. Yeah, come on down. Pass the bag of white bread. We get a taste of what it means to be in another part of the world. Thank you. And in this world that is so big and yet becoming so incredibly small. Whoa, Mary's got the nod. There is this reminder in this food. There's a reminder of our differences, and yet there's a reminder of our similarities. Tortillas, anyone? Last piece of banana bread. Who wants to remember Jamaica? There you go. Tortillas. 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 Mm-hmm.
Sorry, no, this is up there.
Oh no, don't worry. I'm gonna send them up. Don't worry, choir.
I guess the spice will put their voices on fire.
Yeah. Let me take that up to the choir. Mary's gotcha. There is this reminder this day as we eat these different breads that the world may be a big place, but is so very small. We are connected in ways, especially in the time and age that we are living in. We are connected in ways we have never been connected before. Thank you. We can have connections and relationships with people the world over with a simple click. We are more dependent on each other than we ever have been in our whole lives. Hey, Claire, take that up to the choir. I want to hear what happens when they eat the spicy bread. And living in this place, right? Living in this place, it's where you can go to the grocery store and you can hear people speaking different languages. Living in this place, we know how small and yet how big the world is. We know we're connected to the world. But my question for us today is, how does that matter? How does that make a difference in each of our lives? That we are literally connected to each other. That our differences, yes, they are differences indeed. Diversity is something to be celebrated, and yet there are things that we all have in common. That we are flesh of each other's flesh and bone of each other's bone. That when one part of the body suffers, we all suffer. How will that be reality for you today? In the eating of this bread and the drinking of this cup. As you chew on that, quite literally, I would invite you to chew on that for the rest of the day. And to go home. And to talk with the people in your household and with your family and with your friends about what it means to have connections in this planet. To not simply be an individual who's going to take care of yourself and your own, but to realize that the whole world is our own. And how is it that we will care for one another? Those are the questions that I would invite you to ponder today. Do you guys have the plate up there? Okay. Friends, these are the gifts of God. For you, the people of God, these are the gifts that continue on. At this table, and at your lunchtime tables and your dinner time tables, these are the gifts that never end. All things have been made ready and continue to be ready for you. Now what will you do with them? Amen.